Dive into a tale where hidden truths shatter illusions, and every heartbeat echoes with the weight of betrayal and redemption. If you crave stories that stir your soul and challenge every expectation, hit that subscribe button for more riveting journeys. Sophia awoke to a sunrise that shimmered through gauzy curtains, heralding a day that should have been filled with unbridled joy. Every detail had been meticulously planned for months. The lavish venue bathed in natural light, the gentle hum of anticipation in the air, and the delicate scent of fresh blossoms mingling with her perfume. Yet beneath the glittering promise of her future, a small knot of unease had settled in her heart. She reassured herself that these pre-wedding jitters were natural, the sort of butterflies that danced before a momentous leap into a new life. The preparations unfolded like a well-rehearsed ritual. Her hair was styled into soft waves, her makeup accentuating the sparkle in her eyes, and her dress, a masterpiece of lace and satin, hung as a testament to dreams coming true. Nathan, her fiancé, moved about with confident ease, a man of charm, success, and an almost magnetic allure that drew admiration from every guest. His warm smile and gentle words made her feel as if she were stepping into a perfect future. Yet, amid this orchestrated perfection, something was off. Max, her ever-watchful German shepherd, had been a steadfast companion through every twist of her life. But in recent weeks, he had begun to act with strange intensity. Instead of his usual playful manner, Max exhibited a guarded stance, growling softly whenever Nathan drew near and refusing to leave Sophia's side, as though shielding her from an invisible threat. At first, Sophia dismissed his behavior as a quirk of his canine nature, perhaps a reaction to the disruption of routine. However, as the morning unfolded and she caught fleeting glances of his wary eyes, she couldn't shake the nagging thought that Max might be perceiving something she could not. Outside, the venue buzzed with the final preparations, a delicate balance of nerves and excitement as vendors put the last touches on tables and floral arrangements. Inside, in the quiet corners of her mind, Sophia wondered if the signs were mere coincidences or portents of something far more ominous. Despite the perfection that surrounded her, a shadow of doubt lingered. She tried to smile at Nathan's reassurances, her heart whispering caution even as her mind urged her to trust in the day's promise. In the soft light of that morning, every detail seemed imbued with meaning. The laughter of friends, the whispered compliments, and even the subtle clink of fine china, all played a part in a symphony that should have celebrated love. Yet Max's furtive glances and sudden growls echoed in the quiet recesses of her soul, suggesting that not everything was as it appeared. Sophia's thoughts swirled between hope and hesitation, each moment carrying the weight of both celebration and uncertainty. As she stepped into her delicate slippers and began the walk down the corridor to meet her destiny, Sophia couldn't help but feel that the day held more secrets than she was prepared to uncover. It was as if fate had arranged a tapestry woven with threads of joy and peril, and every step she took would reveal another hidden stitch. The sun climbed higher in the sky, and with it, the promise of a beautiful wedding. Yet, in the midst of laughter and celebration, Max's silent protest lingered, a quiet reminder that sometimes the heart sees what the eyes might overlook. In that morning's radiant glow, Sophia chose to trust the magic of the day. But deep inside, she also vowed to remain vigilant, to listen to the silent warnings whispered by her loyal companion. With every heartbeat, she edged closer to a truth that would soon transform her life, unaware that the delicate balance between love and deception was about to shatter in ways she could never have imagined. As the day progressed toward the final hours of preparation, an unsettling energy began to ripple through the venue. What started as subtle oddities soon morphed into a pattern of behavior from Max that defied explanation. In between gentle glances and soft barks, the once playful guardian began to show signs of disobedience that seemed to mirror a deeper, unspoken alarm. When Nathan approached, expecting to smooth away any minor disturbances, Max positioned himself directly between them, a silent barrier that grew heavier with each passing moment. Throughout the afternoon, as the last touches were being added to every decoration, Sophia found herself increasingly distracted by Max's actions. Every time Nathan tried to offer a reassuring smile or a tender word, Max's growls interrupted the conversation. It wasn't just the tone of his bark, but the context, a protective intensity that set him apart from his usual calm demeanor. In one instance, as the sun dipped lower and shadows lengthened, Sophia awoke from a brief nap to the sound of a low, warning growl emanating from the hallway near her room. Rushing to the door, she discovered Max standing guard, his posture tense and alert, as if he sensed an intruder lurking just beyond the threshold. Later that evening, while Sophia's family mingled and the final adjustments were made to the seating arrangement, another peculiar sight caught her eye. Max was found curled up in front of a closet, a place where Nathan's personal belongings were discreetly stored. It was a quiet, almost secretive location, and his presence there was inexplicable. Nathan brushed off the incident as nothing more than a quirk of a dog's habit, but Sophia's intuition screamed otherwise. Each unexplained action, every furtive glance, accumulated in her mind like pieces of a puzzle, one that hinted at a story beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect day. The guests began to notice the tension as well, though they assumed it was simply the natural anxiety that accompanies any grand event. Yet even amidst the flurry of compliments and laughter, a subtle current of unease pulsed beneath the surface. Whispers of "Did you see how the dog acted?" circulated among small groups of onlookers, lending a surreal edge to the otherwise festive atmosphere. Sophia's internal conflict grew as she tried to balance her love for Nathan with the inexplicable signals from Max. Each new anomaly added weight to her doubts, forcing her to question whether there was more to Nathan's calm and confident exterior than met the eye. Was it possible that Max was picking up on something sinister, a truth that Nathan desperately wanted to hide? By the time twilight fell and the venue's lights twinkled to life like a constellation of promises, Sophia found herself locked in a silent battle of intuition versus rationality. Her heart pleaded for trust and optimism, yet her instincts, stoked by Max's behavior, warned her of impending danger. In the hushed moments before the ceremony, as final rehearsals echoed in the corridors and the sound of laughter mingled with nervous sighs, the dog's persistent vigilance became impossible to ignore. Each growl, every sudden movement, served as a stark reminder that beneath the surface of this picture-perfect celebration, something was amiss, a secret waiting to be unearthed that would change everything. In the quiet hours leading up to the ceremony, Sophia sought solace in the comforting presence of her closest friend, Rachel. They retreated to a secluded corner of the venue, away from the bustling crowd and under the soft glow of ambient lights. As Sophia recounted the peculiar behaviors of Max, her voice trembled with a mix of fear and uncertainty. "He's been acting so different," she confided, describing the dog's relentless protective stance and unexplained growls. "It's as if he's trying to warn me about something I can't quite understand." Rachel listened intently, her eyes reflecting both empathy and a spark of curiosity. "You know, dogs often sense things that we can't," she said gently, her tone laced with both reassurance and caution. "Maybe Max is picking up on something that isn't visible to us." Despite Rachel's attempt to comfort her, Sophia's thoughts churned with unresolved doubts. She couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that there was more to Nathan's past than he had revealed. The inconsistencies in his stories, the vague mentions of previous relationships, the abrupt changes in conversation when her questions edged too close to his history, had begun to accumulate in her memory like ominous whispers in a crowded room. Even as the wedding plans continued to move forward, these nagging uncertainties refused to fade away. Nathan, with his practiced charm and confident manner, seemed to effortlessly steer the conversation away from any potentially incriminating details about his past. His deflections and the subtle changes in his demeanor only served to heighten Sophia's suspicions. Every time she tried to recall a clear memory of Nathan's stories, she was met with gaps and evasive responses that left her heart heavy with uncertainty. Late one evening, in a moment of quiet reflection, Nathan suggested a practical solution that left Sophia torn between relief and regret. "Maybe we should send Max away for a while, at least until after the wedding," he proposed, his voice calm and persuasive. He argued that the dog's unusual behavior might be a temporary reaction to the heightened emotions and disruptions of the day. Despite her reservations, Sophia hesitated, caught between trusting Nathan's reasoning and the deep-seated warnings of her instincts. Reluctantly, she agreed, thinking that perhaps it was best not to let these unsettling signals cast a shadow over what should have been the happiest day of her life. As the decision was made, a silent storm brewed within her. Each new doubt that crept in, every subtle hint of deception in Nathan's reassurances, contributed to a growing sense of isolation. Sophia found herself questioning not only the man she was about to marry, but also her ability to trust the very instincts that had always guided her. The night drew on, and with every passing moment, the possibility of an unspoken truth loomed larger. In the quiet after the day's excitement, with the echo of unanswered questions hanging in the air, she realized that the future might hold more than just the promise of love. It might also harbor the specter of betrayal. And in that fragile moment of introspection, the persistent presence of Max's protective gaze became a symbol of the deep, unspoken secret that threatened to unravel everything. The ceremony had reached a crescendo of perfection. The aisle, adorned with cascading floral arrangements and illuminated by the soft glow of crystal chandeliers, invited every guest to witness what should have been a flawless union. Sophia stood at the entrance, her heart fluttering with anticipation as the strains of a delicate string quartet filled the air. Every detail, from the gentle murmur of excitement among the attendees to the polished splendor of the venue, seemed to herald the start of a lifetime of happiness. Yet, deep inside, a quiet storm of uncertainty rumbled beneath the surface. As she took her first step toward the aisle, a sudden, unexpected movement shattered the serene tableau. Max, the faithful German shepherd who had been a constant companion throughout her life, burst into action. In one swift, almost instinctual leap, he planted himself squarely in front of Sophia, halting her progress with a resolute stance. His amber eyes, usually warm and reassuring, were now filled with an unyielding intensity that sent a ripple of shock through the gathered crowd. Gasps and murmurs spread like wildfire, and the soft notes of the quartet faltered into uneasy silence. Time seemed to stretch as Sophia stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. The pristine white of her dress and the gentle lace detailing suddenly became a canvas upon which dread was being painted. Her eyes searched the faces of her loved ones, seeking confirmation that this was merely an unexpected moment of canine mischief. But every gaze, every whisper in the hushed hall, spoke of something deeper and far more unsettling. Nathan's expression, too, had shifted from confident reassurance to a flash of concern and confusion. He took a hesitant step forward, as if trying to reclaim control of a situation that had spun wildly out of his grasp. Max remained immovable, his posture firm and defiant. There was no aggression in his stance, yet no invitation for compromise either. It was as if he embodied an unspoken warning, one that reverberated in every heartbeat of the room. Sophia's mind raced through the possibilities. Had she misinterpreted his earlier signs? Was this an elaborate misunderstanding? The questions collided with the pounding of her heart. In that charged moment, the air felt heavy with secrets and unspoken truths. The guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some leaning forward in anxious curiosity, while others exchanged bewildered glances. The music resumed tentatively, but its notes were now tinted with an undercurrent of foreboding. Sophia's inner world waged a silent battle. Her hope for a fairy tale ending warred against an emerging, inescapable suspicion that something was dreadfully amiss. The radiant smile she had worn moments before began to falter as the gravity of the moment took hold. Nathan's eyes darted between Sophia and Max, his charm momentarily stripped away to reveal a hint of vulnerability. The man who had seemed so infallibly perfect now appeared caught in a tide of events that he might not fully control. Sophia's thoughts swirled. Was this the manifestation of a hidden danger, one that Max had sensed long before the day of the wedding? The answers eluded her, replaced only by the palpable tension that now gripped the room. As the silence deepened, it became clear that nothing would ever be the same again. Max's unwavering stance was not just an act of defiance. It was a declaration that the truth, however bitter, was refusing to be buried beneath layers of orchestrated perfection. In that frozen moment, with every pair of eyes fixed on the unfolding drama, Sophia felt an unyielding certainty taking root. She knew that her future, once envisioned as a seamless journey into love, was now tangled in the thorns of a reality she could no longer ignore. With trembling resolve, she slowly stepped back, her mind reeling from the sudden shift in destiny. The moment of truth had arrived, and the stage was set for revelations that would ripple far beyond the confines of this once perfect day. Every heartbeat, every whispered question in the dark corners of her mind, now cried out for the truth that Max had so boldly demanded. In the immediate aftermath of Max's dramatic intervention, chaos erupted along the aisle. The once-ordered procession was thrown into disarray as the guests scrambled to make sense of the unfolding calamity. A murmur of disbelief rolled through the crowd, punctuated by sharp exclamations and anxious whispers. The air was thick with tension, and for a moment, even the resumption of music couldn't erase the shock that gripped everyone present. Nathan's reaction was immediate and raw. The confident groom, moments before the embodiment of charm and success, now appeared visibly shaken. His warm smile had evaporated, replaced by a furrowed brow and pursed lips that hinted at a brewing storm of anger. With uncharacteristic brusqueness, he advanced toward Max, attempting to shoo the dog aside. However, Max, unwavering in his stance, remained an immovable barrier. The sight of Nathan's futile attempts to reclaim control sent ripples of apprehension through the assembly. "What's happening?" someone from the front row cried, the question echoing among the ranks of bewildered guests. The atmosphere, once saturated with celebration, was now charged with palpable dread. Every eye was fixed on the altercation, each moment amplifying the growing sense that the wedding had been hijacked by forces neither the couple nor the guests had anticipated. In the midst of this upheaval, a striking figure emerged from the crowd. A middle-aged woman, her face etched with concern and determination, stepped forward. Clutched tightly in her trembling hands was a smartphone, its screen glowing with content that she knew would shatter any remaining illusions. "You need to see this," she said, her voice wavering but resolute, as she approached Sophia. The woman's eyes were earnest, conveying a mixture of fear and urgency that left no room for denial. Sophia, still reeling from the shock of Max's sudden intervention, felt a cold knot form in her stomach. With hesitant steps, she moved toward the woman, her heart pounding louder than ever. Around them, the uproar continued. Guests exchanged startled glances, and a few even began whispering about long-buried secrets that had been carefully hidden away. Nathan, now caught between his rising anger and mounting anxiety, could only watch as the woman unlocked the evidence on her phone. The screen displayed a montage of articles, court documents, and police reports, each piece a damning testament to a past that Nathan had so meticulously concealed. As Sophia's eyes scanned the incriminating details, a wave of disbelief crashed over her. The evidence painted a picture of a man who had left a trail of broken promises and shattered lives, a man whose charismatic facade had been nothing more than a lure for unsuspecting hearts. The woman's quiet urgency lent weight to every word that flashed across the screen. The room seemed to hold its breath as the evidence unfolded before Sophia. Each article, each police report, was a stark reminder that the man she had believed in might be capable of unspeakable deception. The revelation was overwhelming, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place with painful precision. The whispers among the guests grew louder, as if the truth itself was demanding recognition. In that charged moment, Sophia's mind raced with memories of Nathan's evasive replies, the subtle inconsistencies that had once seemed like minor quirks but now appeared as glaring red flags. Nathan's face contorted with a mixture of anger and desperation. His earlier attempts to brush off the dog's behavior now seemed like feeble excuses in the face of irrefutable evidence. The tension at the altar was nearly unbearable, every eye fixed on the drama unfolding like a scene from a tragic play. As Sophia clutched the woman's arm, her resolve began to crystallize. The illusion of the perfect groom was irreparably broken, and the shock of betrayal settled deep within her bones. In that moment of pandemonium, the world as Sophia knew it splintered. The chaos at the altar was not merely the result of a rogue dog or a momentary lapse in decorum, it was the violent shattering of a dream. Each fragment of evidence on that small phone illuminated the darkness that had long lurked behind Nathan's charm. The wedding, once a symbol of promise and new beginnings, had become a battleground for truths too long suppressed. And as the echoes of panic and accusation reverberated through the hall, Sophia's heart steeled itself for the confrontation that lay ahead. In the tense quiet that followed the tumult at the altar, Sophia felt as if the very air had thickened with the weight of an unbearable truth. Her hand trembled as she continued to stare at the phone screen, absorbing every fragment of evidence laid bare before her. The articles were unambiguous, each one a meticulously documented account of a man who had ensnared the hearts of countless women only to vanish with their trust, their money, and their shattered dreams. Court records detailed the fallout of deceit. Police reports chronicled cases of fraud and betrayal, and investigative features painted a portrait of a man who thrived on charm and manipulation. The realization struck Sophia like a cold gust of wind, extinguishing the warmth that had once filled her heart. The Nathan she had known was now revealed to be a cunning impostor, a predator who had carefully constructed an illusion of perfection. Every kind word, every reassuring smile, now seemed tainted by the shadow of his hidden past. The evidence was overwhelming, and with each new revelation, the walls of denial that Sophia had built around her love began to crumble. As the whispers of the gathered guests swirled around her, Sophia's mind raced through the fragments of her memories. Moments that once seemed insignificant, Nathan's furtive glances when certain topics arose, his inexplicable reticence when asked about details of his past, the way he had subtly deflected her questions, formed a mosaic of deceit. The darkness that now seeped into her thoughts was undeniable, and the shock was paralyzing. Every word on that screen resonated with the echoes of broken promises, each headline a testament to lives left in ruins. Around her, the atmosphere grew even more charged with tension. The guests, having caught snippets of the unfolding drama, exchanged furtive looks and murmured speculations. In the midst of it all, the woman who had delivered the evidence stood resolute, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and determination. "I'm sorry," she murmured, as if offering a small apology for the ruinous truth she had forced upon the day's festivities. Her quiet admission underscored the magnitude of the betrayal, and for Sophia, the impact was shattering. In that heart-stopping moment, as the evidence scrolled by on the small screen, a singular thought crystallized in Sophia's mind. She could no longer ignore the reality that had been so painstakingly obscured. The charm and warmth that Nathan had displayed were mere illusions, facades meant to hide the dark secret of his past. Every act of kindness, every tender word, now felt like a carefully rehearsed performance designed to mislead. The realization was devastating, yet liberating. With the dam of denial finally broken, the truth surged forth, demanding to be acknowledged. As the room fell into a heavy silence punctuated by the rustle of anxious whispers, Sophia felt a profound shift within herself. The shock gave way to a steely resolve, a determination to reclaim the narrative of her own life. Though the evidence was damning and the betrayal stung with the bitterness of 1,000 lost promises, she realized that this revelation, however painful, was also a chance to rebuild from the ruins of deception. In that moment, the dark secret that had haunted her relationship with Nathan was laid bare, and with it came the painful, yet necessary, path toward a future defined by truth. The storm of revelations raged in her mind as Sophia absorbed every damning detail, each one etching away the remnants of her once cherished illusions. In the quiet that followed, amidst the lingering murmurs of disbelief and regret, she made a silent vow to herself to never again allow a web of lies to entrap her heart. The evidence, though brutal in its clarity, had granted her the clarity she so desperately needed, and now, as the shadow of betrayal loomed large, she steeled herself for the inevitable confrontation with the man who had deceived her for far too long. The charged silence that followed the unveiling of Nathan's hidden past was shattered when he finally attempted to speak. Standing in the center of the now disrupted ceremony, he looked at Sophia with a mix of indignation and desperation. "This is all a misunderstanding," he insisted, his voice rising in pitch as he tried to reclaim some semblance of control over the narrative. His eyes darted nervously between the accusing glances of the guests and the damning evidence still glowing on the small phone held by the steadfast woman. Sophia's heart pounded in her ears as she regarded him with a clarity born from betrayal. Every word he had once whispered with tender assurance now felt like an echo of deceit. The man before her, whose charm had captivated not only her but everyone around him, was now unmasked by the undeniable truth. "A misunderstanding?" she repeated, her tone icy and resolute. "How can you call this a misunderstanding when every piece of evidence points to a life built on lies?" Nathan's face contorted for a moment, and a flash of anger, raw and unguarded, betrayed the carefully cultivated mask he had worn for so long. His eyes burned with a possessiveness that seemed out of place, a desperate need to reclaim the narrative that was slipping from his grasp. You're really going to believe some stranger's words over mine? He spat, his voice sharp enough to cut through the charged air. The accusation hung heavily between them, each syllable an indictment of the trust he had so effortlessly shattered. In that intense moment of confrontation, the contrast between the man he had portrayed and the man he truly was became painfully clear. Sophia recalled the subtle hints she had brushed aside, the evasive answers, the fleeting moments of tension when his eyes seemed to darken unexpectedly. Now, every memory, every small anomaly in his behavior, was laid bare before her. The facade of charm was crumbling, revealing a man who was not only capable of deceit but also of harboring a dangerous intensity. Around them, the murmurs of the guests grew louder, their whispers a cacophony of disbelief and indignation. Some faces showed pity, while others were clearly shocked by the rapid unraveling of the carefully orchestrated wedding. The woman with the phone stepped back, her mission complete, leaving Sophia and Nathan locked in a battle of words and wills. "I trusted you," Sophia said, her voice trembling with both sorrow and newfound strength. "Every word, every promise, it was all a lie. You played me, and you played everyone here." Her declaration was not merely an accusation, it was a moment of liberation. With each word, she shed the layers of the life she had almost embraced, revealing the raw truth of her own heart. Nathan's eyes flickered, the anger giving way to a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability, a crack in the armor of his deception. "You're making a mistake," he argued, though his voice now wavered as if even he was uncertain of the web he had spun. His attempt to rationalize the unthinkable faltered under the weight of the evidence and the intensity of Sophia's conviction. In that heated confrontation, the truth demanded its due. Sophia could no longer allow the past to be cloaked in half-truths and manipulation. The strength in her voice was a rebuke to the person Nathan had pretended to be. Every accusation, every bitter word, was a step toward reclaiming her identity, a self that was no longer willing to be defined by deception. The tension between them was almost tangible, a silent clash of ideals that had reached a boiling point. As Sophia stood there, her eyes fixed on the man who had betrayed her trust, she realized that this confrontation was more than a rejection of his lies, it was a declaration of her own worth. No longer would she be a pawn in someone else's carefully constructed game. The room, now a theater of raw emotion and stark truths, bore witness to the unraveling of a once perfect illusion. Nathan's protests grew feeble, and with each passing second, the gap between the man he pretended to be and the man he truly was widened beyond repair. The confrontation was complete, the mask had been stripped away, and all that remained was the undeniable truth that Sophia had finally seen clearly. In the chaotic aftermath of the confrontation, the atmosphere inside the venue grew even more charged. Security personnel, alerted by the escalating turmoil, moved cautiously toward the center of the hall, their presence an attempt to restore order to a scene that had spiraled beyond simple explanation. Yet even as they encircled the two former lovers, it was clear that nothing could rein in the raw emotions or the torrent of revelations that now dominated the space. Nathan stood with a posture that once exuded confidence, but now betrayed a crack in his carefully constructed image. The polished veneer of the charming groom had crumbled, leaving behind a man exposed in his most vulnerable and frightening state. Every defensive gesture, every attempt to argue his case, only served to further highlight the discrepancy between his facade and the unsettling truth. His once adoring eyes now flashed with something akin to desperation, a silent acknowledgement that the delicate illusion he had maintained for so long was irrevocably shattered. Max, ever the sentinel, maintained his unwavering stance between Nathan and the rest of the gathered crowd. The dog's low, steady growl underscored the moment, a final, unyielding declaration that the truth was not to be ignored. Even as security tried to gently nudge him away, Max's presence was resolute, his eyes never leaving Nathan's face. It was as if Max had become the arbiter of justice in a situation where words had failed and deception had run rampant. For Sophia, the unfolding scene was both horrifying and liberating. Every minute detail, the slight tremor in Nathan's voice, the conflicted flash in his eyes, the unrelenting focus of Max's protective gaze, etched itself into her memory. The mask that Nathan had worn, so perfectly honed to charm and allure, now lay in tatters. In its place was a raw, unsettling reality that she could no longer ignore. The man she had once adored was a master of illusions, a con man whose warmth had been nothing more than an elaborate performance. The onlookers, once dazzled by the spectacle of a fairy tale wedding, now bore witness to a drama of betrayal and heartbreak. Whispers spread like wildfire among the guests, their voices laden with shock and disbelief. Some looked away, unwilling to confront the painful truth. others stared openly, their expressions a mixture of pity and indignation. The collective realization that the wedding had been a facade, a carefully choreographed performance masking a dark secret, added a bitter edge to the already tense atmosphere. As the reality of the moment sank in, Sophia's inner resolve crystallized. The mask that Nathan had worn was now irrevocably torn apart, revealing not only the man behind the performance but also the depths of his deception. Every kind word he had spoken, every loving gesture he had displayed, was now tainted by the knowledge of his true past. The realization was gut-wrenching, yet it also ignited a spark of liberation in her heart. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Sophia was free to see clearly, to choose truth over the seductive lure of a fabricated dream. In a final, poignant moment, the echoes of Max's unyielding stance mingled with the murmurs of a crowd that had witnessed the collapse of an elaborate lie. The mask had fallen, and in its place was a truth that was painful, but ultimately necessary. As the security team struggled to restore order, Sophia stood tall, her heart heavy with sorrow but buoyed by the newfound clarity that would guide her from this moment forward. In the aftermath of the shattering confrontation, as stunned silence gave way to murmurs and the fading echoes of a broken promise, Sophia found herself standing at the precipice of a life-altering decision. The weight of betrayal pressed upon her with a force that was both unbearable and oddly liberating. Nathan, his charm stripped away and his eyes flickering with a desperate anger, looked at her as if he were trying to reclaim a power that no longer existed. The once fervent declarations of eternal love now rang hollow, overshadowed by the overwhelming evidence of deceit. With a deep, steadying breath, Sophia allowed herself a moment of clarity amidst the chaos. The reality was undeniable. She had been ensnared in a web of lies, the threads of which had been slowly unraveling with every revelation. The man who had once seemed like a beacon of promise was revealed to be a master of manipulation, his carefully constructed persona a mask designed to ensnare and deceive. And now, faced with the stark truth and the wreckage of what was supposed to be her happily ever after, she knew that the only way to reclaim her life was to make a choice that would shatter the illusion once and for all. Turning her gaze away from Nathan's pleading eyes and the discordant clamor of a crowd that had borne witness to his downfall, Sophia raised her voice, clear and unwavering. "I'm not marrying you," she declared, the words reverberating through the silent hall like a final verdict. In that moment, every painful memory, every subtle warning that had gone unheeded, coalesced into a singular act of defiance, a rejection of a life built on false promises and betrayal. Her words hung in the air, resonating with a power that stunned even those who had been complicit in maintaining the charade. A heavy silence followed, punctuated only by the soft rustle of shifting fabric and the distant murmur of disbelieving voices. Nathan's face, once a picture of suave composure, contorted into a mixture of fury and despair. "You'll regret this," he muttered, his voice a low, menacing threat as he turned away, leaving behind a trail of shattered dreams and wounded pride. As the crowd absorbed the finality of her decision, Sophia felt an unexpected surge of relief wash over her. It was as if the act of reclaiming her agency had lifted a burden that had weighed on her heart for far too long. The oppressive silence of the hall was gradually replaced by a growing murmur of approval, a quiet acknowledgement that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that free us from the chains of deception. Looking over at Rachel, who had silently supported her throughout the ordeal with a reassuring nod, Sophia felt a newfound strength blossom within her. It was a strength born not of anger, but of the liberating clarity that came with embracing the truth, even when that truth was painful. In that defining moment, she chose to no longer be a victim of someone else's meticulously spun lies. Instead, she resolved to forge a path forward, one where her future would be built on honesty and self-respect rather than on the crumbling ruins of a false promise. With the weight of the past now lifted from her shoulders, Sophia stood tall as the murmurs of the crowd turned to whispers of admiration and respect. Her declaration was not merely a rejection of a deceitful groom. It was a reclaiming of her own narrative, a clear signal that her life, her heart, and her future would belong solely to her. And as Nathan's retreating figure faded into the distance, the echoes of his threat mingled with the sound of a new beginning, a beginning defined by truth, courage, and the unwavering determination to never be deceived again. In the moments that followed Sophia's resolute declaration, the wedding hall transformed from a scene of idyllic celebration into a landscape of raw emotion and fractured dreams. Guests, who only moments before had gathered in joyful anticipation, now whispered among themselves in disbelief. The air was heavy with shock and sorrow, punctuated by the subdued murmurs of those trying to comprehend the sudden unraveling of what was meant to be a perfect day. Some of the guests began to drift away quietly, leaving the hall in search of solace or reprieve from the storm of emotions. Others huddled together in tight clusters, their eyes filled with a mixture of pity and indignation as they exchanged murmurs about the man who had betrayed not only Sophia's trust, but the sanctity of the wedding itself. The atmosphere was thick with regret, a silent, pervasive acknowledgement that a collective dream had been violently shattered. Nathan, whose composed facade had long concealed the tumult beneath, now appeared broken. His confident demeanor had been replaced by a bitter, haunted look, and his steps were heavy as he moved away from the altar. Every so often, he would cast a final, venomous glance in Sophia's direction, a look that promised retribution and regret. "You'll regret this," he muttered under his breath before storming off, leaving behind a trail of accusations and unfulfilled threats that echoed in the now somber silence. For Sophia, the aftermath was a bittersweet mix of sorrow and relief. As the reality of her decision settled around her like a soft, protective cloak, she felt an overwhelming sense of liberation. The oppressive burden of deceit had been lifted, replaced by a fragile hope that she could rebuild her life from the ruins of a false promise. Max, ever the steadfast guardian, stayed close by her side, his warm presence a comforting reminder that she was no longer alone. The gentle thud of his paws on the polished floor was like a heartbeat of reassurance, affirming that loyalty and truth still existed, even in the midst of chaos. Family members and friends slowly gathered around her, offering quiet words of support and consoling glances. Amid the murmurs of sympathetic voices and the soft rustling of gowns, Sophia's resolve grew stronger. The heartbreak of a broken wedding was tempered by the realization that this was not an end, but rather the painful beginning of a new chapter, one in which she would define her own worth and destiny. As she looked into the eyes of those who cared for her, Sophia found solace in their silent affirmation that sometimes the most profound breakthroughs arise from the deepest wounds. In the days that followed, the echoes of that fateful wedding night lingered in hushed conversations and tearful recollections. Yet, for Sophia, every whisper and every painful reminder became a stepping stone on her journey to self-discovery. The aftermath of the broken wedding was a crucible in which her true strength was forged, a strength that would guide her in the days ahead. And as she slowly began to piece together a future unburdened by deceit, she clung to the hope that she would one day look back on this night not with regret, but with the quiet satisfaction of having chosen her own truth over a life built on lies. That very night, long after the echoes of the shattered ceremony had faded into memory, Sophia found herself alone in a quiet corner of an elegant lounge, a space filled with the soft glow of dimmed lights and the gentle clink of glassware. Still dressed in her wedding gown, a haunting reminder of what might have been, she sat beside Rachel. The emotional weight of the day hung heavy in the air, yet amid the sorrow there was an undeniable undercurrent of hope. Rachel's presence was a comforting anchor, her eyes brimming with quiet understanding and a gentle strength that spoke of unwavering loyalty. They talked in hushed tones, their conversation weaving between painful recollections of the day's events and tentative plans for a future that now lay uncharted. With each word, Sophia unraveled the layers of her pain, acknowledging the sting of betrayal and the sorrow of a dream shattered by deceit. Yet, in that vulnerable exchange, there emerged a burgeoning sense of empowerment. The raw emotions of the night were tempered by the realization that, despite the heartache, she had reclaimed her life. The echoes of Nathan's deception, once so deafening, had begun to recede, replaced by the gentle murmur of possibility. Sophia's eyes drifted to the window, where the city lights danced like distant stars, a silent promise that every ending is also a beginning. The weight of the past was slowly giving way to the freedom of a future unburdened by false promises. Rachel, ever the reassuring presence, smiled softly as she said, "You dodged a missile today. You freed yourself from a trap that could have consumed you." Her words, simple yet profound, resonated deeply with Sophia, reaffirming her choice and igniting a spark of determination that had lain dormant. In the quiet sanctuary of that late-night conversation, Sophia began to envision a life defined by honesty, passion, and self-respect. Every tear that had fallen, every painful memory, was now a stepping stone toward a future where she would be in control of her own destiny. The remnants of the wedding, a gown that once symbolized a dream of everlasting love, had transformed into a powerful emblem of resilience. It was a reminder that she was more than the sum of her heartbreak. She was a woman capable of rising from the ashes of betrayal and forging a path illuminated by her own inner light. As the night wore on and the soft hum of conversation filled the background, Sophia felt a sense of gratitude for the unexpected clarity that had emerged from the chaos. Though the pain was real and the scars would take time to heal, she now recognized that moving forward was not only possible but necessary. In that small, intimate moment with Rachel, she found the strength to embrace a future defined by authenticity, a future where she would never again allow herself to be deceived by charm and illusion. With a quiet resolve that belied the tumult of emotions within, Sophia vowed to step into the dawn of her new life with courage and grace. The memory of that shattered wedding, painful as it was, would serve as a constant reminder of the value of truth over pretense. And as she shared a gentle smile with Rachel, Sophia felt the promise of new beginnings stirring quietly in her heart. Days passed since that fateful wedding night, a time filled with introspection and slow healing. One crisp morning, Sophia decided to leave behind the remnants of a broken promise and step into a future unburdened by deceit. Dressed in comfortable clothes instead of her wedding gown, she set out for a quiet walk in the park, with Max faithfully trotting by her side. The fresh air and soft rustle of leaves stirred a sense of calm that had eluded her for far too long. As they strolled along winding paths bordered by blooming flowers and dappled sunlight, Sophia reflected on the tumultuous events that had reshaped her life. Each step felt like a small act of liberation, a quiet rebellion against the chains of past betrayal. The painful memories of the shattered ceremony were slowly receding, replaced by the gentle promise of renewal that nature so generously offered. With every breath, she embraced the reality that though the scars might remain, they would eventually fade into symbols of strength and growth. Max's steady companionship was a constant reminder that loyalty and unconditional love still existed in the world. His soft nudge against her leg and the steady, rhythmic sound of his paws on the pavement were like affirmations that she was never truly alone. As they passed by families enjoying a leisurely day and friends sharing laughter, Sophia's heart began to mend. The promise of a new beginning beckoned, a life where she would define her own happiness, free from the shadow of another's deceit. In the quiet solitude of that morning walk, Sophia allowed herself to dream again. The pain of betrayal, while still present, had given way to a resolute hope, a determination to rebuild her life on her own terms. Each step forward was a step toward rediscovering the woman she had been before the lies had clouded her vision. The future was an unwritten page, and she was ready to fill it with truth, passion, and the warmth of genuine connections. At a small park bench beneath a blooming cherry tree, Sophia paused to reflect. The world around her seemed to whisper of fresh starts and uncharted possibilities. With a gentle smile playing on her lips, she ran her fingers through Max's fur and murmured, "Thank you, my friend, for guiding me back to myself." In that simple moment of quiet intimacy, she felt the first real stirrings of freedom, a promise that she was capable of overcoming even the deepest wounds. As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, bathing the park in golden light, Sophia rose with a newfound determination. The broken wedding, the deception, and the painful revelations were now chapters of a past that had taught her invaluable lessons about trust and self-worth. With Max trotting loyally by her side, she set off toward a future filled with endless potential, one where every sunrise promised a chance to start anew. In that hopeful morning, the memory of the past was not a chain but a stepping stone toward a brighter tomorrow. Sophia had learned that sometimes, in the midst of heartbreak, the universe gifts us the clarity needed to embrace our true selves. And as she walked forward, the gentle rustle of the trees and the distant laughter of strangers became a symphony of promise, an anthem to her rebirth and a celebration of the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned for more thrilling stories, and I'll see you in the next one.